you're doing well this evening. My name is Amber Grout, and today I'll be speaking with you about why I chose a career in law enforcement. So first of all, have you ever thought about a career in law enforcement? If so, it might not be as easy as what you first thought. So law enforcement consists of responding to all different types of calls, and it's anything but routine. If you do get in a routine, that's when you could put your life in danger and someone else's life in danger as well. So law enforcement type of the calls you respond to is domestic calls, suspicious person calls, damage to property calls, assault, robbery, active shooter, any emergency call that someone feels like law enforcement needs to respond, they'll typically call 911 or the law enforcement agency and ask for them to come out. So when I first started out in law enforcement, I worked patrol and then I went into investigations. And investigations is when you get to kind of see things through towards the end. So that means that you receive the report call, you look over the report, gather evidence. If you have enough evidence, you can take out a warrant or criminal summons on the suspect, and then you'll go to a court date. So that's when you can kind of see things through. But if you do decide to get in the career in law enforcement and this does interest you, then you need to go through the basic law enforcement training program. Now with every state's different. I'm in North Carolina, so in North Carolina, our basic law enforcement program is 16 weeks. This consists of North Carolina state exam, a POPAT test, and the POPAT test is just physical stuff. Is when you do push-ups, sit-ups, you have to drag a dummy, and then like a 125-pound dummy from one point to another. And then you've got to, in North Carolina, I had to push my way through a door and enter, and then continue running and doing all the physical requirements. Then you have to do a timed 1.5 mile run, which the time that you have to do it under is 13 minutes and 53 seconds. It doesn't sound that bad, but a lot of people were not able to pass this. So let's say you get through all those obstacles. One of the main toughest things is, once you're finished with all that, is actually getting hired. It's very competitive job or career to get into. Not many people, if you usually start in law enforcement, there's not many openings depending on which agency or department you're in or what area you're located in. But luckily for me, I was able to get a job and at a local police department, but others were not as lucky. So they went through all of that training, all of that physical labor, the state exams, everything, just to, they had a year to get hired, just to not get hired within that year, and they lost it. And if they wanted to do law enforcement again, they would have to do all of that over. So, but once you, let's say you do get a job, then you go through a field training program, and this field training program kind of weeds out a lot of people too, because this job, again, is not for everyone. So law enforcement, when you're in field training, you go through an observation period. In that observation period, you're kind of just watching the field training officer and kind of learning their behavior and how they handle calls. And then once you get past that, that's when you kind of you're kind of dipping your feet in, and you kind of do things a little bit on your own. And if you need anything, then you can ask your field training officer, and they're there. Just make sure you don't violate anyone's rights or get yourself hurt or someone else hurt. So they're there watching, and you can ask them questions and stuff and how you handle the call. Now in the final phase, that means that you're not supposed to use them. You're not supposed to ask them questions, because you're typically already supposed to know those answers. And it's just kind of see if you can do this type of job. And a lot of people do not make it past the final stage of the field training program. But so if you do, then this is definitely a rewarding career. I love it. I enjoy making a difference in the person's life that I'm responding to. For an example, domestic calls. Now, law enforcement officers can respond to a domestic call. They could have had like 5, 6, 7, 8 of them earlier in the night. And to that person though, that call it your own, that person, they're listening to everything that you have to tell them, every little detail, because right here, this is the only thing that matters to them at that point, is you and your advice that you're giving to them, and if you're going to keep them safe. So law enforcement, if you are responding to that type of call, then you can give them the resources that they need. So once you identify the victim, then you can recommend a domestic violence protection order. It's DVO for short, and then they can go to the clerk of court and get that taken out as well, which that just means that it's just a protection order that that the suspect will get served with, the offender will get served with, and that way they'll know that, you know, they're not supposed to return or have any contact with the victim. And if they do, then they violate that order, and then they'll get a warrant for their arrest. So that's kind of a way to protect the victim. Of course, every DVO is different. It can be altered to the victim. And then, let's see, if they need help at that right moment, then we can recommend, there's women's shelters, and just try to find the victim a safe place to be at. But it's very, like I said, a very rewarding career, and it makes an impact on several people's lives. And I think it'd be worth your while and an interesting career. All right, thank you very much.